on the 20th of April 2023, there's going to be a total and partial solar eclipse, and you'll be able to see it in Southeast Asia, parts of Australia, Pacific, Indian Ocean, basically that part of the world. But not everyone's going to get to see the total eclipse. Only a very small band will get to see that. Now, a total and partial eclipse is where the moon is going to pass in front of the sun or part of the sun and block out some of its light. So the image you have here is of a total eclipse where the moon is perfectly in front of the sun and blocks out the majority of the sun. So, as the moon passes in front of the sun, it's going to cast a shadow on the planet. And this orange and red circles here is going to depict where that shadow is going to fall. Now the red part is 100% of the sun blocked out from the moon, which is right in the centre, and that's going to be a total eclipse. And you can see that's actually going to be a very small part of the world we're actually going to be able to see that. But outside of that, a fairly large amount of people are still going to be able to see a partial eclipse. So that's covering quite a wide area where at least part of the sun is going to get blocked out by the moon. So the maximum eclipse is going to last about 76 seconds, and the maximum eclipse will occur at about 17 past 4 in the morning, or universal coordinated time. So you'd have to check what time that relates to in your local time, because this is in universal time, so you need to check what the local time for that is going to be. But because it's moving across the Earth and it's passing in front of the sun, not all locations are going to see it at exactly the same time. So the first location to see the total eclipse begin is going to be 37 minutes past 2 universal time. And then the last location for it to end, so it will finish in the last location at almost 6 universal time. So 4 minutes to 6 basically in universal time. Again, you're going to want to check out your location, what the local time for that is, and when you're likely to actually see it, because it will vary depending on where you are. Now, just as an example, depending on where you are, now if you're right on that total eclipse line, which is in the centre of that contour line on the right, which is going to be like northwest Cape, Australia, eastern parts of East Timor, then you're going to get a total eclipse like you can see here. So if you're lucky enough to be there, then you'll get to see a total eclipse where the moon passes perfectly in front of the sun and blocks it out 100%, a bit like that. Now if you're a little bit further away from that, so for example Darwin in Australia or eastern parts of Indonesia, then you can see somewhere from 70 to up to 100%. So I believe some of the smaller islands right on the eastern part of Indonesia may get to see almost 100% eclipse as well. But if you're in any of those locations outside of the main one, so on the first contour line really, you can expect to see maybe 70 to 100% coverage. And that might look a bit like this illustration here. So this is a simulation depicting what it might look like if 80% of the moon was blocking the sun. So at maximum point, you'd get this kind of crescent of the sun remaining. So it wouldn't completely block it out, but it would block out about 80% if you're just outside of that total eclipse line. Now, as you move further away, which is going to include a lot more people at this point, then let's say, for example, parts of Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and even parts of Australia, then you're going to get to see between 10 and 70% of the sun blocked out by the moon. So as you move further away, then less is going to get blocked out, and this is what 50% of the sun being blocked might look like. So at maximum point, you're going to get half of the sun blocked out. Now if you go further afield, so right on the edge of that, you're going to get 10% and below. So it's only going to be a very small fraction of the sun being blocked out by the moon. So you're only getting a very small section going across there. And that can be seen as far afield as New Zealand, maybe South Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Taiwan, and even Japan. We'll get to see a very small percentage of the moon passing in front of the sun. Now, how best is to actually view this solar eclipse, regardless of whether it's a total eclipse or partial eclipse? Well, one of the easiest methods that most people probably have that they can straight away use is a colander. So if you hold it up to the sun and let the light pass through the holes in it and project that onto a bit of paper or some other surface, then you'll get to see kind of the silhouette of the sun and you'll see the moon passing in front. So you get like a crescent shape during the eclipse. You can do the same thing with a pinhole camera, so you get a piece of paper, make a very small hole in it and project that onto another bit of paper on the floor. Then you'll get the same sort of silhouette of the eclipse as it's happening. It also means you don't need to look at the sun. So using the colander and the pinhole camera, you're not looking at the sun at all. You're just looking at a projected image of it somewhere else, which obviously is the safe way of doing it. Now, if you've got a telescope, you can get a solar filter to put on the end of it. Now, these are relatively cheap, and they just reduce down the intensity of light coming into the telescope. So if you point a telescope at the sun without that on, you're going to cause some serious damage to the telescope and yourself if you look through it. So if you put a filter on the end, then it will reduce the intensity of light down. You'll see something similar to what is on the right. So you get a really nice detailed image of the sun during the eclipse. If you don't have a telescope but want to look at it with specialist filters in the same manner, then you can get some of these glasses. Basically, it's the same filter paper, but you just wear them as glasses, and it doesn't magnify the sun, but it allows you to then see the solar eclipse as it's occurring without damaging your eyes. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoy, then check out some of the other videos.